All right, how we looking? We looking good? I think so. Let me just pull it up here on my phone. On me phone. Oh hell yeah. Okay. Oh god, no, I don't want that. Okay. Whew. Nice. Fuck. Wait. One chat. Okay. That way I can read chat as we go. Keep that right there. Ah, okay. Here we are. Last time I streamed live to YouTube, it wasn't what I had anticipated. I talked about the Dave Chappelle stuff, and it was really awkward because a bunch of people like dropped in a chat and were like, not a bunch, but like I want to say like two or three, and it was my first time like arguing with chat, so it was really interesting. But yeah, right now I'm kind of switching between YouTube and Twitch, and we're gonna see which one works out better as far as film discussion, because as far as I know, there's not a huge film community on Twitch yet, and it seems like most of the film live streamers, like people who stream who talk about film, live or whatever, are on YouTube. So that's a whole thing. So my name is Elijah Lothmer, and I am a filmmaker. I also love to talk about films, and I like to talk about films and like social issues and some political stuff, and all that fun stuff. I do video essays occasionally, and I'm now live streaming, and I like to talk about all that fun shit. So today I am interested in talking about a movie I just saw a few hours ago. It's called Mass, and it was a very interesting film, and I really enjoyed it. So one thing I should let you know off the bat is that my discussion here is primarily going to be, spoilers for the film. I am talking about this for people who have seen the film, and just want to talk about it or want to watch somebody talk about it. I think there's enough, reviews on YouTube for, people to, to know if they want to see it or not. I highly recommend it. If you like something like, sorry, I just bumped the camera. If you like something like, I want to say like 12 Angry Men, or it's one of those movies that feels like it was adapted from a play, but it wasn't. And we'll get more into that in a second. Well, okay, actually, here I can give my general thoughts before getting into spoilers. This movie is incredibly well acted. It's incredibly well written. It's one of my favorite scripts of the year, if not my favorite. And it is an extremely emotional film to watch. It goes through ideas of grief, of empathy, of tragedy, and how time affects us all in that way. It affects our thoughts on the world going forward after something horrible has happened. It's an extremely so here's something. I don't usually cry in movies, and when I do cry, it's usually like a single tear. There were 3 times in this movie that I cried, and it was way more than just like a single tear. I actually like cried. And that is saying a lot, because it takes a lot for me to get super emotional at a movie now. just after seeing so many. But I think what was really good about this one was it didn't feel emotionally manipulative, like many movies that try and make you cry do. It's not emotionally manipulative. In fact, it's like hyper realistic, which is something I really appreciate about the movie. The movie, it even in the first 15 minutes before you really get into like the meat of the film, it primes you for an experience that is very we'll say anticlimactic and detail oriented. And it really likes this movie is very interested in micro movements. It's very interested in words. Words mean so much in this film, which is really nice. I like that the words that characters use and dance around have very dramatic impacts on the story and how characters interact. I love a writer who has a strong respect for words, and Fran Kranz definitely does. I really like the attention to detail. There are moments that for the characters in this film mean everything. Or maybe not everything, but there are so many things that are very, very small things in the film that are paid a lot of attention to. And I don't think in any other film as much detail would have been paid to tiny moments, little gestures, things like that. And I think that's what really amplifies the performances in this film, is that the script gives them so much to dig into that like even just the tiniest gesture means everything, and it has very dramatic consequences later in the film. And so that's something I really, really enjoyed about it is that. And speaking of the performances, there's 4 main performances by Martha Plimpton, Ann Dowd, Jason Isaacs, and Reed Birney. They're all amazing. All of them are so good. I would say that my favorites were Martha Plimpton and Jason Isaacs. I think they were both emotionally devastating. Same thing with the other people, Ann Dowd and Reed Birney. Reed Birney was really interesting. I think he was like the most emotionally distant, not in his performance, but his character. His performance was emotionally distant too, but that's what the character called for. And so I don't want to get too much beyond that. I think this is a movie that's better off being seen with almost no context at all. I think you should go in blind if you know almost nothing about the film. I think what you should expect is something that is extremely subtle. It's very performance driven. The script is tight. Maybe at the end, there are a couple moments where you think it's going to end a couple times, and it goes on for a little bit longer. So there's that to it, but the script really is just it's so good. I very much respect Fran Kranz and this script and how much detail it pays to everything and how developed these characters are. And he clearly has a very deep emotional understanding of grief, trauma, and how these affect people in different ways. He very clearly has an understanding for people and empathy. And one thing, I should say that something I respect the most in my favorite writer-directors is very clear empathy. My favorite writer-directors of this time have very clear, just super are very empathetic in their filmmaking. So that includes people like Sean Baker or Barry Jenkins or Marielle Heller is another one who I really love in that aspect. And Fran Kranz, with his first film here, definitely shows a lot of the signs of those filmmakers who I really love. And if his next movie ends up being anywhere even near as good as this, he will definitely become just like one of my favorite filmmakers right now. With this, he's like, I can tell you that he is somebody where I'm very much looking forward to whatever he does next, because this was just, I mean, it blew me away. Like, I cried. I want to talk about it now. This is inspiring me to talk about it. And I want to dig in. And something I'm going to do with this stream is I would like to get into a deep spoiler-filled discussion where we go through, I want to go through interview footage of both Fran Kranz and the actors. I want to get in their heads. I want to know what they were thinking, and especially Fran Kranz, I want to know his process. And I'm hoping that there are some interviews out there that exist where he gets into his process. And that's something I want to do on this channel, is explore filmmakers, and specifically, what works for certain filmmakers as they make amazing films like this. Like, I want to know what music he was listening to, if he was listening to music at all, or does he write silently, or does he know people like this, or is he just making this shit up? And like, if he is, that's fucking crazy. Where's he getting these ideas? Is he reading like news stories? Is he interviewing people? I want to know all of that. And so I think that stuff is incredibly interesting, and so that's something I would like to get into today. As far as the film, for those who have not seen it, I'm gonna just say, strongly recommend it. Go in as blind as you can. Performances are gonna be amazing. They're gonna blow you away. Very emotionally raw and engaging film. It is very intriguing. That is another thing I should let you know, is that the film's ability to reveal information slowly over time is incredible. It is very, very good about very slowly revealing information to the audience and letting the audience fill in gaps over time. I like a movie that respects the audience's intelligence, and this movie definitely does. So those are my basic spoiler-free thoughts on the film. So now I would like to get into the actual analysis and all that. So I'm going to get on the internet here, and we're gonna look up some stuff here. So I want to first I'm going to open an incognito window, and then we're going to go to YouTube. And I want to look up an interview with Fran Kranz, because I'm very interested in his thoughts. Okay, here we go. We have an interview with 432 views with Fran Kranz on Collider, and so we're going to get into this a little bit. Oh god, wait. Oh, should I cut away from this commercial? Fuck. Okay, wait, let's skip it. Okay, awesome. No. Okay. Am I on this? Alrighty. Let's get into this. Okay.
First, I want to say this is a terrific film with incredible performances.
He was
definitely looking forward
so
to
good in
I have to ask, once you were ready
Cabin
to
in the Woods.
Debut as a
I really loved
director,
him there.
Knowing that you'd have to dedicate all this time to it, did you ever consider lighter fare the first time around? Was it always this film and this story that you felt compelled to tell?
Hey, it's funny. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea. I was so naive as an actor. I mean, I've told this story. At the wrap party, as an actor, that's it. You're done and you go home and you maybe do some ADR. I don't know. Occasionally, I guess there's reshoots, but you're basically it. And then you get to go to, hopefully some premiere later and celebrate. So I was so emotional. People wanted me to give a toast or a speech, and I was so emotional. The next day, I was driving around Sun Valley in the mountains, like
we'll get through it.
I was just a mess, and I had accomplished nothing. Like I'd done nothing. You know what I mean? I now I talk to directors, and they say, oh yeah, principal photography is a vacation. That's a joke. That's a
Oh
vacation.
my
That's
god.
fun.
So as a director myself, I'm currently in production. Now, okay, granted, Fran Kranz has way more access to things that I don't have access to. I know that this is still a super small independent film, but my film is even smaller and even more independent. So, I with the experience I have making my short films, and then being currently in production on my first feature film, which I've been shooting for almost a year now, on and off. We had a shoot in January, one in March, and then we're gonna have another one in November. So we're chugging along here. But I definitely now. Okay, granted, he might have a way more in-depth process when it comes to like editing his films, but yeah, I definitely think that I definitely think that like in being in production filming is very like it's difficult, man. It's stressful as hell. So I honestly don't know. But then again, for me, like I think he also produce this film? I want to say he didn't he? Oh man. Wait, no, I want to go to IMDb. Because if he did produce it, then we are in a pretty similar position. That's what I am interested in. Okay, did Fran Kranz produce Mass? Let's see. Okay, director, cast and crew. Directed by, writing credits, produced by. Yeah, okay, he did produce it. Okay, well, so yeah, producing and directing are like at the same time are very stressful, very involved jobs. But yeah, being on a set is extremely chaotic, and then again, it could just come from the size of my set. Like even I'm also providing the budget for my films, most of it anyways, and there's so much on a budget or on a set the size of mine. So maybe as you get bigger, the post-production process, I know it can be a lot more, it can stretch on for a lot longer, and it can be very frustrating. Well, yeah, it can be very frustrating in terms of like getting seeing that this shot or this scene didn't work as well as you had thought after you filmed it in person, or maybe the mic fucked up on an actor's line or something, and so you gotta go back in and do some shit with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's interesting here and talk about it. Okay, let's keep going.
Everything starts happening in post, and so look, it has been a lot. It's been emotional. It was emotional writing it. It was emotional making it, and it's emotional talking about it.
I bet.
But I had no choice. I mean, I this thing took over my life. I mean, I didn't start doing the research because I wanted to make a movie. I started reading about these things because I was upset, because I felt like I needed to know more, and I was scared, and I was frustrated or angry, and I just needed to know.
That's something you really get a feel for throughout this film is, man, like, yeah, he strikes me as a very curious person, especially with, with this subject matter. I guess most creative people are very curious people by nature. Yeah, well, I guess it's a mixture of curiosity and empathy because, hearing him talk about, doing research and just kind of looking into it and being extremely upset, I understand that, but I respect him so much for turning that being upset by, the events of, school shootings and all that. So, by the way, spoilers, again, I'm getting into, the rest of this is going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the fucking movie, don't watch. Yeah, so it's just, it's really interesting to me that, Oh man, I completely lost my train of thought. Fuck. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm super glad that he turned his curiosity and researched, and then the more he researched, I'm sure that turned into an empathy for both, first of all, going just outside of the victims of the shooting to their, friends and family, which, that's obvious. But even going to, the family of the person who committed the act, and even empathy for the person themselves. I think it takes an incredibly genuine and curious and empathetic person for that. I guess that's a word I'm going to be using a lot here. But that is I think that shows the signs of a very strong filmmaker is, the curiosity, especially of something so scary and heinous, a subject matter such as school shootings or somebody committing a very violent act, and then kind of wanting to explore the psychology and the trauma and the grief that comes from that, even on the side of some, the person who did that. That just, a lot of respect there. That's really nice.
So there was never any question about having to do this work. I did not know how much it entailed. As writer, producer, director, everything. I'm the production company. I'm just overwhelmed. But it's also sort of a dream come true. And now that audiences are responding to it, I'm just, it just feels like I have more work to do. But I could think of nothing better.
It seems like there's an endless list of things that could have gone wrong with this. Yep. I mean, you're telling a story that's so emotional that could have been it could have ended up being unwatchable just because it would have been so hard to watch, and yet somehow you are compelled to watch these people's story. Yeah,
that's something that I think the movie also does a really, really, really good job of, is not overloading you. I feel like it would almost be easier to make a film where it shows the parents right after finding out, and both of the all the parents are reacting to the death of their child, and that's something they discuss in the film, but it's I feel like it's almost more of the filmmaker's instinct to show that, because one of the biggest things you learn in film school, which this rule is I don't always agree with it, is the show don't tell rule, which, I mean, a big thing for this film is seeing the emotions of the parents currently. The movie takes place 6 years after the event. So you are showing something by showing how they are coping with it now instead of how they were coping with it then. I think people employ show don't tell in sometimes a kind of stupid way where and I've had this happen, with my scripts, where there are times where I genuinely should show not tell, but then there are other times where it's wait, what I want to show is how they feel about the story they're telling now. I don't want to show the story they're telling, I want to show what they feel as they're telling the story. That's the whole thing, right? I'm not fucking interested in showing that thing. Anyways, so something, to go back to the original point, something the film is really, really good about is not not overloading you, not triggering anything. It's a PG-13 movie, so you don't actually see anything violent. Now, there are violent things described in the film, but it is the film treads the line of being palatable, and that is a really important thing here. It's incredibly emotional, but it's never disturbing. And it's never I feel like it is, it really cares about how the audience reacts to it. And I think it wants, it is interested in people being interested instead of, turning away. I feel like a lot of filmmakers, including myself, I have an instinct to shock and to, Yeah, and so I think that's always more attractive as a filmmaker, is to get really into the weeds on that, and to just show the grimness of the situation. Like, actually, perfect example is, recently there was the movie The Last Duel, which I saw and I loved that film, but I thought it went a little too hard on some of the, sexual assault stuff. I think, there were a couple of scenes where it was portrayed, and I think it definitely could have lightened it. And I think, it shows great maturity in Fran Kranz as a filmmaker to maturity and, understanding of the audience, to not overload them.
And you're telling really just a story with conversations, and you're mostly in just one room. I mean, all of those things could have gone bad at every turn. When did you realize it was actually all working and that it was a compelling story?
Yeah, I got good feedback, right, from the script. Look, I tried to treat the conversation. I tried to treat these as four equal parties, four equal human beings, real human beings. There was no good or bad. There was no
Yeah.
antagonist or protagonist. There was a kind of equivalence, and a kind of I treated them as, I wanted their humanity and I wanted them to have dignity. So I think that was important.
I really like that word. So, like, of course, with the humanity, as I explained, he's like incredibly empathetic. You can tell in the film that they all have humanity, but the important word there was dignity. I'm very interested that he said that, especially on the side of the parents with the son who, killed people. I'm a very That's so, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting way of phrasing that, and I think that that is an important thing for people to note writing interesting characters, especially in those parents' position. It's incredibly easy to first portray them as like the villain or the guilty party, but then even further is portraying them as very ashamed or shameful. And yeah, I guess like it would be easier to portray them that way, but you are a little surprised watching the film at how dignified they are. There is a lot of guilt shared between between the characters, but there is also you can tell each character is going in there with their own perspective and they stand by it, and so I think that's something that a lot of filmmakers or writers can easily forget. Is you lose focus of everybody's perspective in a scene, and that each character wants something different out of the scene, or that each character goes into a moment or a scene first of all with different context, a different understanding of what other people want from this interaction, and then a different understanding of or a different idea of how this is going to go, and a different understanding of, I mean, essentially everything within this scene, right? People come in with their own motivations and their own context and everything. But it's also, it's just really cool to hear him say that he wanted to write them as dignified. That's good. I like that.
Important from the very first step, that I wasn't trying to say this person's at fault, this person did this thing, where these characters are going to find it out so they can blame them. It's about the complexity of being a human being and the mistakes we make, the tragic mistakes we make, or the things we miss because we love unconditionally, because we love our children so much, we make mistakes.
Man, like, this is gonna make me get emotional all over again. Fuck, bro. Yeah, so a moment that really got me was Ann Dowd. It comes at a moment where the other parents are very much interrogating Ann Dowd, who is the mother of the son who did the mass shooting. Um, and she is like asking them, like, what do you want me to say that, like, that I like didn't love him, or like what do you want from me? Like, of course I loved him. Like, she has a few moments like that where it's like, no matter what you want from this or from me, I can never, because of my love for my child, I can never approach this in the way that you want me to. I can never refuse to see this person as a human being deserving of my love. Or not even deserving of my love. I can't tell you I didn't love him. Like, I can't also rip away the empathy I have for him. I know he was in pain. I know he did a terrible thing, but I also know he was in pain. And so man, like, that's so good. Exploring that question, it really, it gets like, it gets to the heart of, especially with the parents of the kid who did the mass shooting. It gets really interesting when you're questioning them of, like, a lot of the conversation surrounds, what they could have done differently. But in what they could have done differently, it's things like, okay, what did you notice? What did you believe of your son? Did you believe that he was capable of this thing? And then, with a lot of answers, it's like, well, no, because we didn't want to. But and when you bring up evidence, it's like, it's obvious. But it's like, yeah, well, love makes you do crazy shit, right? And so it's this. The script is like this perfect balance of, like, the logical versus the emotional, right? It's like it's that balance of, how do you treat a situation like this? Because it's very easy to get just super logical with everything and, ignore the feelings of the people involved and be like, okay, well, this person did this and this is really fucked up, right? Or it's incredibly easy to get, like, super emotional and be like, hey, like, this thing affected me and I feel this way and I think you should feel this way too because I'm feeling it and my emotions matter more because we are the victims, right? It's like, and then it gets into how everybody is a victim in this circumstance. There are victims all over in every tragic event, even from the point of view of somebody who is perpetrating or doing the thing. They can also be a victim. And so I don't know, it's yeah, just good shit.
And that felt truthful. And when I did this research, and read about these things, that's what I read about. Very rarely read about parents that were monsters, or parents that, were so conspicuously bad. That's just not what I found. And so I think that starting from that point, I think helped the script. And I got good feedback. I was open. I wanted notes. I wanted to change things.
Yeah.
I didn't have any experience, so I don't think I had a big ego about it. I just wanted it to be better.
That is, like, honestly probably why a script is so good. There's so many people who get, like, so big-headed about their scripts. And it's like and there is some feedback that is, like, not good. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like all feedback is, like, super precious and something you can hold on to, but I feel like the best writers are always very good about recognizing feedback that isn't so good and feedback that is, and it's something that I feel like you gotta train yourself to do, and it's probably a constant process of learning. And there's probably feedback where you think it's good at the time, and then you look back and you're like, I don't know why I listened to that fucking person, And, it's a constant state of evolution. But in my mind, most of the best writers, like, just are exactly as he says, are very feedback heavy and don't have a big head about it. It's very easy to get trapped in your own brain and, you know, not notice things. But I feel like this is something that most people know, so I'm not going to spend too long on it.
And then when I got the actors, you know, we had a 2.5 day rehearsal, and we sat at a table to do table work, which is basically dissecting the script and making sure it all worked. So we were getting a lot of good work done there because I needed to make sure the words were there so they could take these emotional journeys, that the words would carry them to these emotional places. Because the 4 actors are better actors than I am, and I wasn't about to sit there telling them how you be emotional. They know how to do that. It was just about making sure that the journey was there.
Oh man, okay, that's really good. So talking about my own filmmaking experience here again, I am aware that I'm a much better writer than I am a director, and something I get really insecure about is how to direct actors, how involved I should be in their process as actors, and how much like ownership I should have over a role or over a character with them. And I've always approached it in a way of like, once I cast you in the role is 51% mine, 49% yours. I own that 51% just in case, like just that extra 1% is just in case, you know, something happens or something, you know, it's that reservation to be able to like, you know, if something, you know, fucks up or whatever, then I can, you know, give it to another person or whatever. But other than that, the role is both of ours now. We co-own this role. And then, you know, it's my version of directing is putting a lot of trust in the actors. We do, you know, read through, and I ask them if they have questions, and then I tell them a lot of like what goes on in the characters' heads. But in terms of, you know, we'll have one session where we sit down and talk about the character, maybe some backstory stuff or whatever. But beyond that, it's really up to the actor how much they want me to be involved. And like, if they have questions, I'll always answer them, whatever. So I'm just glad to hear somebody else talk about that, because I feel like I've definitely met directors where it's like they're doing some cool mind game shit where it's like not like fucking with you, but like they're like asking you like probing questions, and they're like talking to you and like trying to get in your head about the character and stuff. And I was never very good at that. I was never good at like probing these things out of actors and stuff. And you know, some directors get really, really into it with their actors, but it's cool to see that somebody who made a movie that's very reliant on the performances, and the performances are amazing, is just saying that like, hey, I just let them do their shit. Like I wanted to make sure that the words worked and that you could get to the emotional places, but as far as the acting goes, that was them. So that's cool. Learning here. This is also like exploring this stuff is for my sake as well. Like, you know, I'm trying to learn from great, you know, artists.
The thing we were doing is Ryan Jackson Healy, my cinematographer, he was there with a camera. We had our Alexa Mini and we had lenses. We had the camera we were going to shoot with, and he moved around the table to sort of help us understand our shot list in between the rehearsal and the shoot. You know, it was a camera test. And we went back a couple days later, you know, and Ryan sent me the footage. And I saw it. I saw the movie. You know, I could see it. You know, we obviously weren't yet in Idaho, but cool. I saw these actors playing with each other and reading these lines, and I knew it was going to work. You know.
Did you make a conscious decision from the beginning not to be in the first film that you did as a writer and director? I mean,
I was curious about that too.
Want to direct yourself, or did it just not feel like there was a role for you?
It was never conscious. I mean, in the sense that, you know, I wrote that opening first. I mean, I wrote that in one sitting because I love this idea of people helping people, and I love the misdirection of not knowing where this was going. I really believe if the movie was just the 4 parents,
yeah,
the audience would connect with it differently.
So one thing I noticed about the opening is it's incredibly the opening really primes you. Or look, so what I got from the opening, maybe he'll say something different about what the opening was supposed to be, but for me the opening primed me for the idea of those details, that very detail oriented script that I talked about before, is because the opening is such, it's gonna sound bad, but it's not bad. I mean it in the best way possible, but it's such, like, it's so nothing. It's so, like, characters, and it doesn't even follow any of the four parents. It follows this, like, church lady getting the room ready for everybody, and so they're, like, paying attention. It's like her and some, like, church helper boy, like, setting up the table and the chairs, but, like, and then this other lady comes in and she's, like, kind of critiquing the room. She's like, okay, like, I think the chairs should be here. We shouldn't put the tissue box here. We should put it over there. You know, all this other stuff, and it's just, it was so interesting because, yeah, like, for me as an audience member who's experiencing for the first time, this opening is incredibly effective in priming me in what the movie is going to pay attention to, how the feeling of this movie is going to be. First of all, this isn't going to be like a movie. This is going to be a very subtle, very, like I said before, anticlimactic movie where you know, the littlest things mean giant things. That's a dumb way of saying that, but I'm sticking by it. And it really does effectively, in microcosm, show you what the movie is going to be. And I was thinking about that as I was watching the movie, as, like, if it just started with the parents in the room. I think it really does also build up the emotional intensity of what this is going to be. The fact that these characters that we don't see really for the rest of the film. So the first, like, 15 minutes of the movie is three characters that we see again, like, at the very end, but the rest of the movie, like, in the middle, like, that, like, hour and a half in between is just, like, four people sitting around a table talking. But I think it also prepares you as an audience member for how important and intentional, I guess just important this interaction is going to be. The fact that these characters who we won't really see again are paying this much attention to how the room is constructed, and you know, all the things building up to that. I think the movie sets you up for really well. So I thought it was also an interesting choice, but I think the movie is very much better off for it. Yeah, I honestly couldn't imagine the film without it. If I did, I think it would be a worse movie. So
it would be a movie, if that makes sense. You'd get to sit down, you get to watch this, you'd meet these people. It's fiction, and you can be safely disconnected from it, safely detached. So
yes,
and I worried that you would not be as empathetic, you would not be as affected, you would not be as engaged and connected to these people, and if you just met them on their own. So if I introduce them through these three supporting characters that feel like they're from another movie, that there's almost a comedic element.
Oh my god,
we get to laugh at a few jokes, kind of lean in, wondering, what is this? What are we seeing?
Right.
And by the time the parents arrive, the audience can be blindsided by what the movie is really about. And I thought that, I'm not sure how to explain this, but I just believe that would connect us in a more intense way with the story.
Oh my god. Yeah, like, okay. Yeah. Okay, so that goes along with everything I was saying before about how subtle the movie is trying to be. And yeah, he used that word, empathetic. Meeting these characters through other characters is, oh man, that's so genius. Like, if you want your audience to get to be empathetic towards some characters you haven't met before, because I know the first time you see the parents of the son who died in the film, it's, like, kind of rough. And I feel like if you were introduced to those characters, and that was, like, the first thing you saw in the movie, you definitely wouldn't be as empathetic or understanding of their situation. They would come off as maybe a little not unlikable, but like they would just certainly come off differently, more distant as people. But I really, really like that. Is such a, oh man, I really like the way he phrased it. And I mean, it's, you know, it's more eloquent than the way, you know, I was talking about it. But like, it's just, it's an incredibly interesting decision, and I think it really paid off. But yeah, I think that is something important to keep in mind about introducing your characters and framing character introductions through the eyes of other people. Something that comes to mind right now is in this is going to be a weird reference for this film, in Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The way we meet, why that character introduction is so memorable, and the way we meet Willy Wonka is so incredibly important, that it's through the eyes of a public that has no idea who he is. But we've been like primed in the film. You know, we've spent the first like 20 minutes of the movie never seeing him. We have no idea what he looks like. We've been told all this shit. And so now through the eyes of a bunch of other people, we're meeting Willy Wonka, and he's coming out. He's like stumbling, and not stumbling. He's like fucking, you know, walking with his little cane thing. And then he gets, and he jumps up, and it's like big fucking thing. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck? But the framing of how you meet characters is always going to be incredibly important. And I think that was, a really good choice to have, to spend time with some other people. And like, yeah, and through their very tiny interactions, some of these interactions are talking about the family themselves, or the family themselves, and then some of them are just completely unrelated. Like, yeah, like you said, they're making like some jokes or whatever. It introduces you to the idea of this world feeling real and lived in. So it gets you in the mindset of like, okay, this isn't just a story. There is a world outside of these two families. There are things happening in the background. And so it sets you firmly in the idea of this is the real world. This isn't the movie world. And that was really effective.
Sympathy would be greater, that our connection would be more profound if we did not see it coming. You know, if we learned about this in this sort of organic, you know, kind of, sort of odd kind of way. But yeah, no, I wrote those supporting parts. Didn't write, you know, a part for me, and then the parents, you know, I felt like I'm not quite
too young.
Yet, but
yeah.
I never thought about it. I never consciously thought about it one way or the other. There just wasn't a part for me. I don't know. I don't really at the moment have any interest in directing anything that I'm in. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I want to just tell a story that's in my head and have a deep emotional connection with it. And at the moment, acting, placing myself in a role, I feel like would muddle, would be a distraction in that relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because I talk to a lot of actors who direct, and some are totally okay with directing themselves.
Yeah, it's really. I'm always interested in actor-directors.
Really seem to be in between.
I'm an actor-director.
Funny, interesting. Well, I mean, I want to make another movie just simply to see if I can improve on the mistakes that I made, and just I feel like this is having a success, and I feel like I need to do another one just because of that.
I want it.
But
hell yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
It was certainly not like I have no desire to like go, you know, play and direct Hamlet, you know.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh wait, that's Kenneth Branagh. That's funny. Yeah, it always the idea, because I act as well as direct, and I acted in a couple of shorts that I directed before, but in my first feature, I don't act in it, and that was something I was always scared of. Is I feel like it's really easy to look goofy as a director where you're acting in your own movie, and you know, somewhat pretentious maybe. maybe not pretentious, I don't know, but I feel like it can very easily get into embarrassing territory. And, you know, there's some people who can pull it off really well, and, you know, some people who don't, you know, who don't even try. Like, I know, it's interesting. I haven't seen this movie yet. Maggie Gyllenhaal has another movie, has her first film, her directorial debut, The Lost Daughter, coming out later this year. And she, despite, I mean, from, you know, the looks of the roles in the film, she is the age of at least one of the main characters. She would be able to play one of them, but she doesn't. And so, you know, I'd be interested in her decision there as well. But, you know, yeah. So it's always interesting to see people do that. Or, well, you know, Bo Burnham wrote and directed Eighth Grade, but then again, the movie's about eighth grade. He's older than that, so I don't know. Maybe he would act in something he directed. I don't fucking know. But
Depends on those guys that did. I think it's awesome. You know, I think it's great. I'm a big Kenneth Branagh fan.
Yeah,
It's
Kenneth Branagh.
great. You know, go for it.
Did you always know that you wanted to take this journey to?
He's a Kenneth Branagh fan, so that means he's somewhat like Shakespeare. And I wonder if he's like a big theater fan. I wonder if that's why this movie was... I wonder if that's why he took this direction with telling a story like this. Because, you know, with telling a story like this, you can really go in a lot of different directions. You can... but the one he chose was one room, mainly. You know, 4 characters. And, you know, it feels very much like a play. So, I not that being a fan of Kenneth Branagh or plays really, like, tells me much. But I'm really curious if he's just a big theater person.
Redemption and forgiveness, or would you have been okay if it never got to that point, if it didn't feel right?
Well, yeah, I wanted to believe in those ideas because I didn't know if I was capable of them. You know, the genesis is kind of the film is the literal catalyst was the Parkland shooting, because I was a parent for that time. It was the first major high profile mass shooting that I had when I had a child, and it affected me so differently, and I was overwhelmed, and I started doing this reading about it. But when I came across these meetings, the connection I made was with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, which when I learned about that in college, I was deeply disturbed by it because I did not think I could do it. I did not think I could forgive someone who took a loved one or a family member from me. It terrified me, because what that meant is that I would be living a life of hate and blame forever. You know, that I'd be stuck with that pain and that resentment and hatred. And
so, spoiler for the movie again. I mean, by this point you should know. The mother, I mean, the parents of the kid who it dies in the film do forgive the parents and the kid who killed their kid, and so that's really interesting to hear. But I think that it's been my personal experience with any script that I write that the scariest things are always the most appealing. Because if something is scary to you, or something is, I feel like so many of these interesting ideas for scripts and for, you know, just the stories you want to tell, as, you know, a really good writer, come from things that you're, you know, curious about morbidly maybe, and things that you're kind of scared of. I think that informs a lot of it too. If exploring an idea sounds interesting yet scary to you, and you're like terrified of going further, it's like going into a cave, like plunging into the depths. I think that makes for a very good starting point for a script, because it means you're going to be introspective. And being introspective on paper in a script is incredible, because the audience is watching you as a writer work through emotions, very complicated feelings, as in this film. And so the audience, you're now taking the audience on a ride, which causes them to be introspective. And that's where some of the greatest movies of all time come from, is the writer exploring something that they were terrified to explore, but learning something new about themselves, and the audience learning something new about themselves. It always bums me out. There's some, writers I talk to where it's like, I don't want to touch that because it, just like, it just sounds scary, or what. I feel like I talk to people where it's like, I want to write about this thing, but I just don't know, like, it's like, no, go to that thing, don't go to the thing you already know how to write, or don't go to the thing that is the easiest. Do the thing that's the most challenging, because chances are it's going to be the most interesting. So that's cool. I'm very glad he said that yeah, it's very clear he, explored something that was challenging for him.
And that's a terrifying thing to think about. And I had to confront those feelings again when this Parkland shooting happened, because I was a parent and I started to worry about my child and the country she was going to grow up into. Mm-hmm. And I thought about these things again, and so it wasn't. I wanted to know. I didn't know how I was going to get there necessarily. I read a lot about the amnesty hearings in South Africa, and there's not a whole lot to read about these meetings in the wake of shootings here. Obviously, they're private, they're painful, they're extremely sensitive. It's not as if you get some transcript. There's little details you get here and there that, people have been open enough to share. But I tried to sort of construct one. But like I said, I was coming at it from having these people all be inherently good human beings. Mm. So I didn't know how we were going to get there. But I was curious. I was interested in the idea that forgiveness doesn't.
Before it gets into the next thing, that's really interesting. It speaks to the perspective of the film that the movie, he and thus the movie itself, thinks these are all good people, or that the idea, or rather the idea that of good people existing. I feel like with subject matter this gray, it's really interesting to hear him say that, and it's not necessarily a perspective I take when I'm writing. So that's, I think that's like the first thing he said where I'm like, oh man, that's really, I almost never consider any characters that I personally write, into the idea of being good or bad people. I guess there's like kind or nice, but it's interesting to hear him say that. Not that it makes it any worse or better. I think it's just interesting. But, I think it's a really nice approach. Now, in life, I kind of waffle between, like, just to get into worldview a little bit, whether good people really exist or not. I feel like I more often tend to, well, no, I'm just going to actually leave that. There. It is a really interesting question to ask. It depends if I'm thinking logically or emotionally, I guess. But yeah, I guess right now I would probably say that good people exist. There's, yeah. It's just an interesting way to approach a script with this complicated of ideas. However, if you were to approach it in the way of good people don't exist, it's just like people, maybe this film wouldn't have felt as cathartic as it does. I don't know. We'll never know. So it's just an interesting idea.
Benefit all the parties equally, and maybe there's even a transactional quality to it, that I get to forgive you and feel better about myself. But what does that mean for you? And I wanted to explore that, because I just didn't know. I didn't know how.
That explains so much about the ending. Because the ending was the only thing that left me a little confused as to why the movie felt the need to do as much as it did at the end. Something I mentioned earlier was it kind of feels like the movie is going to end like 3 times before it actually does. And so at a certain point, I want to say for the last like 10-15 minutes, it just it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, it's okay. I mean, it's going, it keeps going, and like you're sitting there, in the audience, and you're like, I guess it's still going. Not that it's a bad thing. It's not like I thought it was bad. It's just interesting. But hearing him say that explains more of the events at the end of the film, and it gives me a greater understanding and appreciation of the final, 10 minutes of the movie. So
any of this stuff worked, but I felt like I needed to. I felt like I desperately wanted to believe in reconciliation and forgiveness, but I just didn't know how to get there. So that is what the movie is. It's very personal in the sense that I'm working through this myself, but these 4 characters is
interesting.
My proxy.
Yeah, it really does feel like he's having a conversation with himself in the film. Not in a bad way. It's just like it. Yeah. I'm so interested in, because even through that, him saying that, the characters are so clearly defined. I guess you can. Oh, hi. Oh no. Thank you. Thank you, baby.
Of course.
What was that?
Of course.
Oh. Thank you very much. I love you.
I love you too.
Speaking of film, this is a birthday present that my lead actress in the movie I'm currently shooting got for me. What does it say again? It says, good friends are like stars. You don't always see them, but you know they're always there. And it goes, old saying. And so that was my partner. Well, the person who got me this was the lead actress. She's one of my favorite people in the world. My partner is also one of my favorite people in the world. That's very nice of them. It's getting a little tired, so thank you. Oh man, what was I even saying? Oh fuck! Here, wait. Let's rewind and see.
I'm working through this myself. But
okay, yeah, okay. So what the film feels like is it's a conversation with himself, and I wonder if this is the way he wrote it. I wonder if this is the feedback, because the characters are very clearly defined, and so it almost feels like maybe if you were to deconstruct the script writing, and this is pure speculation, if you were to deconstruct the script writing process of this film, the first drafts, I'm assuming, probably feel much more like his voice in all of the characters. And maybe that's just how it would be for me. If he's exploring these ideas, having a conversation with himself, first and foremost, and then you kind of go back through the script and you add more defined character traits to each of the characters, and you essentially go back through and just flesh out your characters a lot more. And so it still is that conversation with yourself, but it also does feel like a conversation between 4 individuals. So I've never written a script like that, though. Well, no. Okay, I wrote a short where it was kind of like that. I don't think it was nearly as good as how he does it here, but it was like a conversation I felt like I was having about a thing I really wanted to talk about. It was also about shootings, which was interesting. Very different approach, though. But yeah, so that I'd be interested to see maybe some of the like first drafts of his script and how clearly the characters were defined versus how much it really just felt like he was working through something. Yeah.
And with these 4 characters is sort of, my proxy.
I just thought that moment was so interesting. I have watched The Redemption Project, which is a show that Van Jones did, where the victim or their family and perpetrators sit down across from each other and have a conversation.
Ooh,
and
never heard of that.
Were so interesting because it never was, no one episode turned out the same way. Some people forgave, some didn't, some thought they weren't going to and did. It was so interesting, and this felt
I need to look up that shit.
Natural, which I thought was interesting because, obviously you have a script, but it didn't feel like that was a scripted moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks. It's interesting. There's, someone was, I think of this movie as being, very much about restorative justice. And someone said, yeah, but the victim and the perpetrator are gone. It's not restorative justice if they're gone. And I don't know. I want to push back on that in the sense that, or maybe that's taking it too literally, or that's limiting our point of view. I think it's simply the effort. It's making the effort to forgive, making the effort to heal, making the effort to reconcile.
That's so cool.
It's those intentions are restorative because they are not punitive. Those intentions are restorative because they are not retributive.
Man, what a cool person. He truly understands what restorative justice means. So, this is where I'm going to get a little political. I consider myself a very left-leaning person, and I consider myself a fan of restorative justice. I think that retributive justice mostly leads to harm. And so, something I'm very frustrated with my other left-leaning peoples, the left-leaning community at large here, is they will all... Sorry if you can hear the dog barking in the background. I don't know what they're barking at. My neighbors just have a lot of dogs. But anyways, something I think is very frustrating is there's a lot of left-leaning people who talk about believing in restorative justice, yet with a school shooter or with somebody committing a darker crime, or even somebody who like tweets some racist shit on Twitter or whatever. Those people all did bad things. We all can understand that. However, there are so many people with like even somebody who like tweets some stupid, bad, mean, whatever shit, is they'll like talk about how that like person needs to like be buried, or how that person is like fucking garbage. I hate that. I hate the idea of calling people garbage or trash or whatever. I feel like it's saying you believe in a thing. And granted, I think they do believe in restorative justice for like people who are clearly victims of a system, right? So like, drug users who are arrested, or people who commit violent crimes, or maybe not even non-violent crimes, who are in a position where they were in a position of need. But restorative justice also applies to people who do things you are disgusted by, including school shootings. And so I think it is I think true restorative justice is a very, very hard idea to wrap your head around. I think it's very easy to claim to believe in restorative justice, but once you're actually in the position, I think that you it's just you know, it's very easy to, you know, let a lot of things get in the way of that. And so I have immense respect for Fran Kranz. Like, this is, I know it just seems like I'm just like putting on, like, piling on admiration, but really he's just super impressing me, because he's demonstrating a true understanding of restorative justice, an understanding of empathy, for people that you know, to be honest, nobody would even give the time of day to. So it's really interesting.
You're not asking for retribution. You're not asking for punishment. So I'm just sort of being redundant here, but you know what I mean. That's what it means to me.
And it is really interesting that the people that, you know, it, like, in the film, the family of the kid who dies comes in essentially wanting to punish the other parents. They want the other parents to answer for something. And that the idea of retributive justice, them wanting retributive justice, really shines through there. And how ultimately meaningless retributive justice is at the end of the day. Because when we get to the end of the film, they have essentially gone to the side of restorative justice, and I think you believe that the characters are much better off for it. And that is, you know, it's astounding. It's really beautiful. I love it. So.
But I'm the Redemption Project, the Forgiveness Project, the TRC in South Africa. I mean, these are the things that I immerse myself in these stories, because in large part because they don't all end the same way. I mean, they're big critics of the TRC in Africa. I mean, even Desmond Tutu sort of, you know, admits that some of these people could be re-traumatized by going in and having to sort of disclose all of this, and not feeling ultimately that it was healing. It may have been worse, you know. So it's incredibly complicated. But look, at the end of the day, you know, I am so worried about this increasingly divided country. I'm worried about the country my daughter's growing up into. I'm obviously worried about these events and the frequency of them. But I feel like if there's not some effort to reconcile, if there's not some effort to sort of restore or repair these kind of broken relationships, I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope. You know, I don't know how we survive.
I think that's very clear in the movie. Very obviously sidesteps the political question of, like, the political questions of mass shootings, like the gun question. It addresses it pretty early on. It's not like it doesn't address it and, like, it therefore feels unrealistic. It addresses it, but it's very, you know, cleverly able to sidestep it and to just get to the humanity, you know, the heart of everything here. So I think he achieved what he wanted. Very, very much so in that regard of just wanting to understand, you know, the characters wanting to understand each other as people without bringing in that political question. And I think we could all, and I'm saying this as a very left-leaning person, I think we could all benefit from that. I'm very tired of people pretending that, like, conservatives are, like, the same thing as, like, Nazis or anything. I'm just, like, it's just so tiresome. And, you know, I really do. I agree with him. And, you know, I think that a greater understanding for everybody, greater empathy for everybody, truly does lead to, you know, better outcomes. And yeah, it's just, yeah.
I don't know how we can move forward if we can't start to make a better effort sort of bridge this divide. It seems like it's just getting further and further, further and further divided, as opposed to trying to kind of reach some kind of common ground. So the idea of sitting down at a table in the physical presence of someone, not online, not through avatars, not
Mm-hmm.
being physically present and trying to work through your problems with someone that you are at odds with or feel blame towards or hate towards. I
Uh-huh.
can think of nothing more extraordinary and necessary.
Oh my God.
So it's
Fran Kranz, progressive king. I think to me, being truly progressive is that understanding. I think that people who want to pigeonhole everybody else, and like I'm saying this is like, I feel like conservatives do this just as much with left leaning people. So I mean, ton of blame goes to them too. I'm more critiquing left leaning people just because it's just frustrating to see people that I agree with falling into these they're not traps, they're just doing it not how I want. And so but I think it really does hold us back as people to not be understanding, and to and to really feel the need to stereotype, pigeonhole people, and it makes it easier for owning people online, for political discourse to be hyperbolic and to be very simplistic with your worldview and with how you approach other people. But I think it makes the world worse off for it. So I think the idea of being truly progressive, indicating progressing the world as a whole, is to be more understanding of people and a little more empathetic, and to truly do restorative justice. So I didn't know I was going to be talking about this with this movie, but like, man, Frank Kranz, you brought it out in me. So good job, bro.
That was the story I wanted to tell, and I wanted to lift up that action, elevate that as being important. And that's one of the reasons we don't leave the room, really. It's just 4 people at a table, white walls, very little production design. The church was a modest church. It doesn't look like some concert hall. I just wanted to focus on that basic action, that these people are trying to work through their differences.
The last thing I want to ask you then is, are you someone who, do you have other scripts written that
I want to know, yeah,
on something now that you've done this? Do you use that outlet as sort of like a
dude, I want him to write about everything,
right on to the next project, or how are you figuring out what you want to do next?
I was trying. I feel like I'm still working on this. I'm so emotionally attached to this. I mean, I'm exhausted. I feel like a crazy person, but I can't break away from it. It's like being in a relationship. Like I'm just like I'm not ready to move on. I do have other scripts. I was working on something when this all happened, and I just sort of put it aside. So I have these unfinished ideas, and I've been dreaming about doing this most of my life. So I have a lot of these unfinished ideas, that never sort of made it, that I couldn't really get over that hump. This one I was able to, I think, mostly because of this kind of desperation and urgency I felt around it. I felt like this is a story. It felt important. It felt like what these people are doing is extraordinary, but it shouldn't be extraordinary. We should be encouraging it. It should be something that we see happen more in our society.
Yeah,
man. I wonder if it would be helpful to sort of make a practice of this. So I have another idea, but I truly think I need to really be done with this one first, whatever that means.
Man, I want to see his other idea.
Either have to jump right into something else, or they need time and distance.
I never want to work again.
Jump. I get it.
Want to work again. Bro,
these things feel like giving fucking birth.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the
By these
emotional
things, I
roller
mean
coaster
movies.
and journey you must have been on with this. I mean, clearly it's something to be
So much
proud of,
different.
and it must be rewarding to do. But I would imagine it's still a
Fuck.
definite emotional journey.
It's a lot. It is. It's emotional, and I definitely need a break. I want to be a dad, and like I want those moments. You know what I mean? And yeah. So we'll see. You know, I definitely have ideas, but I'm gonna need a beat. You know, I'm gonna need a spa. You know, or
Yeah.
a rehab, or a mental institution or something. One of those. Something will work. Something will get me energized again.
Yeah. Oh my god. I want to talk to Fran Kranz. I feel like I want to ask him questions. I want to not even just about this movie. I just want to get his opinions on, state of the world. I want to. I want to have a conversation with Fran Kranz. Okay. Should we watch another interview? That was fun. I had fun talking about. Should we watch one with Fran Kranz or should we watch one with one of the actors? I feel like maybe one of the actors. A conversation. Okay. Or well, maybe we can get Fran Kranz and out. That's something we could do. Okay. You know what? Yeah, I want to hear more about his process with... Sorry. I want to hear more about his process... I just apologized to the mic. With the actors. Okay. Should we... Fuller.
Hey everyone, welcome to the next in our Brim screen.
Is this
series.
fun?
I'm Cutter Calloway, and for those of you who have seen Mass, Fran Kranz's newest film, you know how moving and how urgent and necessary this film is. For those of you who have not seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It is a timely film, it is a gripping film, it's deeply emotional, and it's one of those that stays with you for quite some time after viewing it. I had the pleasure and the delight to interview Fran and also Ann Dowd, who plays Linda. And I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did.
Thanks, bro.
Well, Fran and Ann, thank you so much for joining us. And before we say anything else,
Fran and Ann.
I just want to say thank you so much for this film. I don't even know if film is the right word for it, but this experience, this encounter, I really appreciate the artistry, the intent, and most of all, just the time you're taking to spend with us today.
Thank you. That's
Very
sweet.
welcome.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
So I'm gonna go. I could softball this for you, but you gave us a film that is not a softball, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with not a softball question.
Do it. Get 'em.
I think, and this could be for both of you actually. The question I think turns on what this thing is that you've given us. Is this a fable in like the best sense of the word, or is this like a realist drama? And my question is basically in the terms that your movie sets forth.
Explain the question.
Is forgiveness an actually real possibility, or is it this ideal that we can sort of aim toward but never fully realize?
Okay.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to make a realist drama,
Yeah.
and probably ended up with a lot of fable without realizing it.
What do you mean by fable, honey? A lesson for me, no?
Or what did you say? Parable or fable?
Yeah, fable or parable. Yeah.
Well, that there's so much. I think there's a universality to it, or there are bigger themes to draw out of it. When my focus was on presenting one of these meetings as truthfully as I possibly could, and unadorned. I didn't want the traditional conveniences of film. I didn't want a score. I didn't want to leave the room. I didn't want flashbacks. I didn't want inserts. I wanted the characters to enter the room, and I wanted us to be stuck with them until they leave. And I wanted to sort of respect that because I respected and had such sort of admiration and awe for just the very fact that these meetings happen at all. under all kinds of circumstances, not just in the wake of shootings between parents, but I read about the Forgiveness Project. I read about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa.
I need to read about these things that he's referencing, because this sounds really interesting. The Truth and Reconciliation in Africa. This sounds really interesting. So it sounds like he was really inspired by these movements. So it sounds like he, just to get into a little bit of Frank Grant's head here, it sounds like he was extremely horrified, as we all were, and baffled and curious about all of these school shootings that were occurring. Meanwhile, I don't know if the Forgiveness Project or the Truth and Reconciliation thing, I don't know if those specifically have to do with shootings or what they were, but it sounds like he was also very much, inspired by school shootings, and then his relationship with his children, and imagining a world where he would probably be on either side of the parents in this film, but also I wonder if these projects really inspired the empathetic worldview of the film. I mean, I imagine he's a very empathetic person himself, which is why he's gravitated towards these things. But I wonder if, because I don't know, I think that's really interesting, because one thing I was really interested in is why he chose to make this into like a one-room, four-character drama versus, anything else. And so... I guess my initial thought was just he likes that, which is, a very simple answer. Like, he likes theater. He likes very simple things. Or maybe it's a budgetary thing. I don't know. But now I do know. It's, he has an immense respect for the actual meetings that go on, which, it's just an interesting worldview. Actually. Let's look this up. Google Forgiveness Project. The Forgiveness Project. I'll look this up. Interesting. Okay, let's go to Wikipedia. The Forgiveness Project is a UK-based charity that uses real stories of victims and perpetrators of crime and violence to help people explore ideas around forgiveness and alternatives to revenge. With no political or religious affiliations, the Forgiveness Project's independent and inclusive approach ensures its core message that everyone has the potential to change their perspective and break the cycle of vengeance resonates across all cultures. Oh my god. Of rehabilitative storytelling. Okay, so the Forgiveness Project has an immense investment, it looks like, in we've been talking about it like all stream. Restorative justice. Central to their work is the sharing of personal accounts with people's transformative journeys. Having collected over 130 personal stories on their website, this is also done through its exhibition, The F Word. And the F Word probably meaning forgiveness, right? Yeah. And via award-winning programs it runs within prisons, schools, community groups, and companies. So the Forgiveness Project, I'm super interested in this now. This, in my mind, is true progressivism. Is that a word? This is what it really means to be progressive. Not this, like, stupid shit online. This is important. My God. In providing tools that facilitate conflict resolution and reconciliation, the Forgiveness Project encourages behavioral change and improves people's lives, whatever their story. Is this something that like everybody else knows about, but I don't know? Feeling pain and anger, being curious, forgiving yourself, developing empathy, seeking revenge, transforming hate. That is something the main characters do. Well, all of these is something well, okay, this is something Fran Kranz does. And then, but a big thing in the film is the transforming hate thing. Going from retributive justice to restorative justice, or transforming hate and wanting somebody to answer for their actions to forgiveness and an understanding of the other person's, perspective, experience, what have you. Oh my god. Sorry, we're taking a little detour. F-word podcast. I want to listen to this podcast. It would probably make me cry. Stories. Oh my god. Huh. Okay, what happens? This just looks really interesting. Fig and Murray. On the 22nd of May 2017, Fig and Murray's life changed forever when her son, Martin Hett, was one of 22 people murdered in the Manchester Arena suicide bombing. 22-year-old Salman Abidai, a radical Islamist, had detonated a shrapnel-laden homemade bomb as people were leaving the Ariana Grande concert. Oh my god. Whoa. Oh my god. This is insane. Gethin Jones was a repeat offender who spent his youth in and out of care homes, secure units, and prisons. Until the year 2000, he embarked on a journey of change and ultimately self-forgiveness. This is so cool. You know what this also reminds me of is there's a YouTuber I was introduced to. His name is like White Underbelly. I forget. Soft White Underbelly. Okay. This guy interviews opiate addicts, like sex offenders, a bunch of different people, inbred. Yeah, this one was really interesting. And this has helped me gain a lot of perspective. Very good, amazing YouTube channel. But some of these people are victims. Some of them are, people who have done very bad things. But at the end of the day, they're all people. And this is another channel that encourages you to view them as such. Oh my god. I want to go through and read the actual, stories. I don't know if I'll do that on stream, though. Ruchi Singh lives in India and is an international keynote speaker, mentor, talk show host, and best-selling author. Her experience as a domestic violence survivor has led her to focus her work in forums promoting courage and leadership for all victims. Wow. Dude, this is so cool. This is amazing. Now, okay, he mentioned one other thing. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, South Africa. Oh my god. So sometimes my Xbox just turns on for no reason. The Truth and Reconciliation The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was a court-like restorative justice body assembled in South Africa after the end of the apartheid. Witnesses who were identified as victims of gross human rights violations were invited to give statements about their experiences. Some were selected for public hearings. Perpetrators of violence could also give testimony and request amnesty from both civil and criminal prosecution. The TRC, the first of the 1,003 held internationally to stage public hearings, was seen by many as a crucial component of the transition to full and free democracy in South Africa. Despite some flaws, it is generally, although not universally, thought to have been successful. Public hearings of the Commission was empowered to grant amnesty to those who committed abuses during the apartheid era, as long as the crimes were politically motivated, proportionate. There was full disclosure by the person seeking amnesty. TRC's emphasis on reconciliation was in sharp contrast to the approach taken by the Nuremberg trials and other denazification measures. Yeah, okay, wait. The reconciliatory approach was seen as a successful way of dealing with human rights violations after political change, either from internal or external factors. Consequently, other countries have instituted similar commissions, though not always with the same scope or the allowance for charging those currently in power. I guess I don't know much about the history of South Africa. So I'd be really interested to know, like, what history this was born out of. Because the Nuremberg trials, obviously, is an answer to, the Nazis. The Nuremberg trials were a series of military tribunals held following World War II by the Allied forces under international law and laws of war. Trials were mostly notable for the prosecution of prominent members of the political, military, judicial, and economic leadership of the Nazi Germany who planned, carried out, and otherwise participated. First and best known of the trials is described as the greatest trial in history by Sir Norman Burkitt. Sorry, now I'm just skimming. I'm trying to see because I don't know many of the outcomes of the Nuremberg trials. First time international law, the Nuremberg indictments also mentions that. Okay. Origin, I don't want that. I want sentenced to death. Okay. Hanged. Released. Ill health. Okay. Released because of ill health. Committed suicide the night before. Oh my god. After trial, incarcerated where he committed suicide. Posthumously rehabilitated in 1953, which was later reversed. What? How are you posthumously rehabilitated? Is that like a term for something I don't understand? Signed the instruments of surrender. Oh, hanged. Okay, wait, so he was hanged, posthumously rehabilitated. Okay, how do you posthumously rehabilitate somebody, and then how do you reverse it? Death sentences were carried out by hanging using... They were still hanging people in 40... I guess they were... Yeah, the Nazis were hanging people. Army denied claims that the drop length was too short, which may cause the condemned to die slowly to strangulation. Okay. John C. Woods. Oh my god, they know the name of the executioner. That's crazy. The executions took place in the gymnasium of the court building... What? Bro, they were hanging people in gyms? That's fucking insane. Holy shit. Okay, yeah, so the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is, in very stark contrast to the Nuremberg trials, because they fucking killed these motherfuckers. Yeah, oh man, and that's... Fuck. I wonder, were the, crimes of the people in question here nearly as bad as the Nazis? I mean, well, certainly it's not as well known, so it wasn't on as much of a scale, but, what happened? Apartheid era. Okay, I want to... Here, wait, let's see. We're doing a little history. South Africa, apartheid. This is so interesting to me. The apartheid system in South Africa was ended through a series of negotiations between 1990 and 93, and and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission said it started in 93, so that lines up. And through unilateral steps by de Klerk government, those negotiations took place between the governing National Party and African National Congress and a wide variety of other political organizations. Negotiations took place. Okay. The negotiations resulted in South Africa's first non-racial election, which was won by the African National Congress. Okay, what do I... Background. Apartheid was a system of racial discrimination and segregation by the South African government. It was formalized in 1948, forming a framework for political and economic dominance by the white population and severely restricting the political rights of the black majority. Okay. I see. Okay. And that explains so much. I knew that South Africa had a very interesting and complicated all of Africa does, but specifically South Africa had, they have a very large white population, which for like an African country, which was always very interesting. I guess I just never really read up about it. So, wow. And, oh man, I really wonder what leftist groups here in America think of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So if we go back to because the leftists, who, think that, colonizers should be, hanged or, whatever, essentially like the results of the Nuremberg trials, I maybe wouldn't have, but seeing as I'm a fan of rehabilitation. Okay, criticism. A 1998 study by South Africa's Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, and which surveyed several hundred victims of human rights abuse during the apartheid era, found that most felt the TRC had failed to achieve reconciliation between the black and white communities. Most believed that justice was a prerequisite for a reconciliation rather than an alternative to it, and that the TRC had been weighted in favor of the perpetrators of abuse. As a result of the TRC's shortcomings and the unaddressed injuries of many victims groups, together with NGOs and lawyers, took various TRC-related matters to South African and U.S. courts in the early 2000s. Another dilemma facing TRC was how to do justice to the testimonials of those witnesses for whom translation was necessary. It was believed that with the great discrepancy between the emotions of the witnesses and those translating them, much of the impact was lost in interlingual rendition. A briefly tried solution was to have the translators mimic the witnesses' emotions, but this proved disastrous and was quickly scrapped. I bet. While former President F.W. de Klerk appeared before the commission and reiterated his apology for the suffering caused by apartheid, many black South Africans were angered at amnesty being granted for human rights abuses committed by the apartheid government. The BBC described such criticisms as stemming from a basic misunderstanding about the TRC's mandate, which was to uncover the truth about past abuse using amnesty as a mechanism rather than to punish past crimes. Critics of the TRC dispute this, saying that their position is not a misunderstanding but a rejection of the TRC's mandate. Among the highest profile of these objections were the criticisms leveled at the family of prominent anti-apartheid activist Steve Biko, who was killed by the security police and whose story was featured in the film Cry Freedom. Biko's family described the TRC as a vehicle for political expediency, which robbed them of their right to justice. The family opposed amnesty for his killers on these grounds and brought a legal action in South Africa's highest court, arguing that TRC was unconstitutional. On the other side of the spectrum, the former apartheid state President P.W. Botha, defied a subpoena to appear before the commission, calling it a circus. His defiance resulted in a fine and suspended sentence, but these were overturned on appeal. Yeah, I mean, it sounds fucking complicated. Yeah, this is so interesting. But, I mean, something to draw it all the way back to the film, something that really calls it into question of, you know, being robbed of their right to justice. You know, what does true justice even look like? What is satisfactory justice? You know, I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, I still stand by the thing of, like, you know, restorative justice is the best justice. So I agree with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission more so than the, you know, the outcome of the Nuremberg trials. And yeah, I think it definitely seems like there's, like, much valid criticism in terms of, like, the, when they talk about political expediency. But I think if executed better, and I know very little about this, I just Wikipedia'd this shit. But it just, yeah, man. Yeah, there's probably a lot of people who, like, want to kind of, like, brush it over. But I don't see what the Nuremberg trials did much better if I think about the outcomes of that. Not to, I guess, say that they have to hang anybody or anything like the Nuremberg trials. But, yeah, I definitely think this is better. Anyways, let's go back to this interview, right?
Just am so in awe of these things because, truthfully, I don't know if I could participate in one. You know, then that scares me, and I struggle with that. How capable am I of forgiveness, and how would I heal? How would I move forward? So it was this sort of exercise.
Yeah. Through reading that stuff, especially about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it really does challenge your perspective on forgiveness, because it's much easier to say you believe in forgiveness than to forgive something so heinous. But that's what the Forgiveness Project is, right? That's what they're about. Those are people who are strong. Those are people who are brave. Those are people who are able to do something so courageous as to forgive. You know, they're like those are exceptional people who are able to forgive something so horrific, you know, in their situations, whether it's, you know, killing, you know, in a mass shooting, or whether it's surviving abuse, or whether it's, you know, surviving the criminal justice system or anything like that. It's just, it's so, that's what makes it exceptional. And yeah, I think it's challenging to put yourself in that position, especially, you know, well, and if you're in that position, it's very, very hard to make those steps to that forgiveness. And so, yeah, oh man, good shit, huh?
Personal exercise myself, and sort of exploring and digging through this and placing myself in the four characters' shoes. And I think sometimes I can step back and think, oh, maybe this is sort of a metaphor for today in our divided country. You know, maybe this is about a lot of things. There's such a spiritual component to it. Maybe it's just about the search for meaning in general in life. You know, understanding just anything in life. So yeah, you know. But my focus, the focus as filmmaker, was keeping this grounded in reality and never getting in the way as a director. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
getting in the way as a director is an interesting way
it was a fable.
to say that.
I bought it, and as I was thinking through it, and maybe
it's a very non-flashy movie, which I really appreciated about it. Much in the same way that movie that came out a couple years ago called Dark Waters. I didn't love the movie nearly as much as I love this, but that was also a very non-flashy movie. I feel like with subject matter such as this, it's very easy to go like big. And in some cases going big is very effective. The Big Short went big, but it was also incredibly effective. And I have a feeling now. Granted, The Big Short has like more stars, names attached to it. So I think there's definitely methods of being effective in either way. This is definitely a little more introspective than something like The Big Short is, though. Although The Big Short is, I guess, like a much well. No, I mean you could tell the story of the. If you, I was gonna say that Big Short is a much more systemic film, but this is also a very systemic film in the systems it wants you to think about beyond even just the characters themselves. So you could make a movie on this scale, talking about the issues that The Big Short talks about, people being affected by greedy banks or the greedy banks and the mortgage crisis of 2008. Yeah, so I think there was a movie about that, right? It was there's a few movies about that. There was one called 99 Homes, and then I feel like isn't Hustlers? I mean, Hustlers is also a little bit more larger scale, but like Hustlers is also, it's a personal story of strippers who had to take strippers who started doing things, taking steps in a certain direction in response to the crisis of the financial crash of 2008. So yeah, I mean, like I said, both approaches can be incredibly effective. This just really, really worked for me. So.
Speak to this a bit as the way you sort of thought about Linda and what your role is in particular, because as you're writing the script and then as you're kind of acting out this meeting, it seems that you had to set up certain conditions. That this sort of moment, the climactic moment we get to, didn't just happen willy-nilly, but you had to be really intentional about setting up a certain set of underlying conditions that allowed for this to emerge, and allowed us as an audience to get to that point and go, yeah, that's right? That rings true to the story, to life, etc. And did you think about that, of how your character in particular, was part of setting those conditions to get to that point?
What do you mean by setting conditions?
Well, I guess that's my question. As I looked at your character, I thought in this, to make this moment possible, where these two families have some moment of forgiveness, you in particular played a very interesting role in how you reacted to the other family, you reacted to your spouse, and I can imagine being in a room like that where the person in your situation does not react that way. And so both the question is, what were you doing as a human to set up a possibility of forgiveness, and then also as an actor in that role?
I place no restrictions or structure on her or the experience, because Fran did that for us in the writing and in the way this was set up to shoot. One of the things I learned from her is her awareness. Place no restrictions, have no expectation. Stay present in the room with the truth. There's nothing to defend here, because how could you? And no expectation of forgiveness, because no. Whatever she can bring to the situation, however it lands, stay with the truth. And so that to me means no restriction, no plan, no thinking ahead. No, if I do it this way, I play it that way. The profound instinct was take your hands off the controls here, and the wish to guide. She will guide you.
And did you all stick pretty closely to the script, or was there? Did you get
There
a
was no
shoot
desire
at the?
to change anything once
Yeah.
to change anything. When it's the script is written this way,
Yeah, why
this
would
is
you?
what it says written.
Yeah.
We had a suite of you. We did have we did have a 2.5 day rehearsal.
Pardon?
We in New York, and it was about 3 weeks before we went to Idaho to shoot. And you know, I'm an actor. I believe in the importance of actors. I love actors. You know, I sort of learned along the way working with.
Yeah, I really love that. Something I try and keep in mind with any script I write is how interesting and engaging it is going to be for the actors playing the characters in the script. I feel like it's really easy as a writer to forget, because I've acted in things where it's like the director forgets, or maybe not even forgets, but like just doesn't care how engaging it is for you. I like for even the smallest roles in anything I write to be engrossing for the actor. And so I try and take a lot of steps or instincts from like the Coen brothers. You know, there's a lot of talk of the Coen brothers and how even, you know, one scene, one-off characters, day players or whatever, have very interesting and defining attributes, and you know, they're always defined characters, and you know, even if you're in just one scene as an actor, you can really have fun with that scene. Even if you only have a line, you can get super into that line. And so I really appreciate it when, yeah, like they're kind of, you have like an actor's writer or whatever who is very, now granted it's hard to make every single role like super duper engaging, but you know, trying to do it to the best of your ability, and you know, I know that I try my best to do that because I've been on the other side of it as an actor, where it's like you have a role and you know, you want to, yeah, granted there's steps you can make, you can take to like make it as interesting for yourself as possible, but you also want, you want the writer, or you know, you want the director to be engaged in it as much as you do. You want them to care that you're bringing something really unique to the character and not just saying like a line because they need you to say a line. So that's a really nice thing to be aware of.
Directors that
Oh god, my butt
the more you
hurts, dude.
ask about the actor, the more you're going to get out of the play. The more you, because they're
Ah,
the ones
that
taking
really
the
hurt.
emotional journey. Sorry, I say play or script. But they take the emotional journey. So if they're ever faking it or missing something, or no longer engaged, even just no longer being engaged, if they're just sitting waiting for their next line, you know, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, there's something wrong with the script. And so we had this short rehearsal.
That's a
where
good way of-
essentially we did table work and just dissected.
I like that. Oh man, I'm gonna use that. Okay, as a way of getting into the script, if to tell if it's working or not. Now, granted, you need to trust your actors for this, I guess. So you need to be very trusting of the people you hire. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. But to know if your script is working all the way through is to take note of your actors being engaged the whole time. That is very good advice. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Fran.
The screenplay to make sure everyone knew where they were going, what information they had, and what needed to be changed. We changed. You know, I went home and did rewrites, and if someone
Table reads.
there was a moment where
On it.
Linda and Richard are talking about the day, how from their perspective, what happened on the day of the event. Jason Isaacs playing Jay looks at me and says, "Why? I don't want to listen to this. Why am I listening to this?" And the instinct was so honest that it was put into the script right then and there.
Wait,
Right?
say that again.
And the Jay, how someone, there was a moment where Linda and Richard are talking about the day, how from their perspective, what happened on the day of the event. Jason Isaacs playing Jay looks at me and says, "Why? I don't want to listen to this. Why am I listening to this?"
Mm.
And the instinct was so honest that it was put into the script right then and there. That was a rewrite. Like you wouldn't. Yes, well, that's how
So
you feel.
cool.
Let's say it. So I just wanted to make sure the words were there to carry them on this emotional journey.
Yeah, that's really
that
cool.
all the pieces were in place. Because they're better actors than I am. I'm not going to sit there and tell them how to be emotional. But there was never a discussion of that. It was just let me do my job to make sure they can be carried there, so to speak. While I wouldn't say there was a lot of improv. They were co-authors. I really believe that.
No, darling. There were only a few things that needed, very few. Very few.
And
I mean, one question I had for you was it a stage play first in your mind? Because it definitely had that feel.
it has that feel, but at the same time, it has such an intimacy to it. And like I was saying before, there's those like subtleties to the way it's filmed that it's like, granted, I haven't seen a ton of plays, so maybe I just lack the perspective here. But it really feels like something you could only achieve that intimacy through film. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you could do it on a stage. Then again, like I said, I could just lack perspective. I haven't seen. I've seen a couple high school plays, and I've seen a couple of like musicals that weren't high school plays, but I haven't seen like a very low production like this would be if it were a play. So not low, but like small.
Best sense of it, right? But what it didn't feel like was a stage play that was translated into a film. So that's what I think was really successful in capturing the best of that, but then also making it cinematic.
That's great. I mean, that's cool. I wanted to make a movie. The first drafts were screenplays, and I just thought, you know what, this would probably be a play. This might need to be a play. It was at that point just in the parish hall. Even the beginning with the supporting characters, it was all there. And so I did go that route. I do think, it spent several months as a play, and then I went back to a screenplay because that's where my heart was.
Yeah.
And I also believe you needed cinematically. You could only capture all the layers and the internal moments and the secrets and the private exchanges between the partners.
Intimacy.
You could only do that, I thought, through a camera lens.
Yeah.
But I think the time it spent as a play allowed for the conversation to sort of be what it was.
That's really interesting.
Treating it as a
That's cool.
I guess. And
Yeah.
I had 4 leads. There was no good and bad guy. There was no.
Oh, I wonder if in earlier versions of the screenplay there was more defined lead. That would be really interesting to see too.
For human beings, and I wanted to plead their case as best as I could, as truthfully as I could. And I think a lot of that work came as it was a play. I mean, there's a lot of stage in the DNA of the film. I think for the better.
So, speaking of the setting, so it's an Episcopal church, not unintentional. I'm thinking back to what are the conditions that are necessary for this? Was it always a church? What if it wasn't? The same story or no?
It was always a church, but I'm gonna have to answer for that for forever. It feels like people brought it up, and I thought something would be lost if it was in a home. I read about a meeting that took place in a home. I thought something would be lost if it was a community center. What these people are speaking about, the themes of the movie, are spiritual themes. I think forgiveness, reconciliation, life, death, meaning, just the search for meaning and
I wonder if he's
understanding
religious.
is a spiritual pursuit. They're looking for very specific meaning, right, and specific understanding in their context, the context of the meaning. But sort of the pursuit of understanding means sort of the unknowable and the unimaginable is a spiritual thing. And I thought this has to take place in a spiritual place. And my background, I was raised Catholic. I I no longer
Me too.
really go to church, but I like church. I like a good sermon. I do like going. When I do go, I appreciate the themes and the stories. So I'm not shy about the religious element of it. I want it to be in there. But it was much more familiarity of my own background to think of a church. There was
Interesting.
never any doubt in my mind it had to be in a holy place, like a house of worship. The spirituality is deeply intertwined with the essence and soul of the film.
I like that that's an instinctual thing. I think so much good writing comes from instinct. Um, like self-reflection, instinct, curiosity. I mean, he obviously has an explanation for why it's in a church, but like it's one of those things where like yeah, him talking about it like it was an instinctual thing, which is often how you know um, well, I mean, as a writer, you're gonna have things you plot out more, and then things you just kind of write because you write it, instinct or whatever. But for most of the things, I don't. I think about a lot of stuff, but I try not to overthink anything, and let my instincts guide me. I think that's when I do my best writing. So I often have to catch myself on when I'm like thinking about what I want to say with like a film where sorry, I kind of lost it. Like I really have to think about like there's sometimes where like I get too lost in the weeds of like what is the theme of the movie, especially like the first draft, right? Like what is the theme, what am I trying to say to the world with this film, when I have to catch myself and I just go, wait, nope, fuck it, like at least for this first draft, for the first however many drafts, go with your instincts, tell the story you want to tell, get to know the characters and events, and then we can worry about we can really worry about like what we're saying and the themes we're presenting later on. But right now, what we need to get right are essentially our instincts. I mean me. I'm not multiple people.
It's also, sorry, excuse me.
Go ahead.
It's a safe space, and it's in its way a neutral place. And I think we talked about it earlier today. The door to talking about these things has been opened there. It is a church. So somehow, and I know, did I say that wrong?
Yeah, no, that's it.
And you have said God adjacent. I love that. But I would also say God is always present. Spirituality is always present. However one experiences that in their lives. All things are different, valid. But the presence is there. The idea, the challenge is, can we let it in? Can we let it take the lead? Because we all need some kind of grace to move to the next place. Despite our intentions, we need something else.
Yeah, I love that.
Especially with this, right? I mean, it's one thing if we're talking about other issues we may face in life, but something so traumatic, something so urgent as this, something so sort of cataclysmic. It is hard to imagine what resources we might draw upon to move forward, to forgive, to heal, all the things, Linda, your character, and I think some of the others say, like, I want to heal.
Do you say Linda, your character?
I think
it's funny.
Let
That's the
me
character.
just give you like my quick.
Oh wait, no.
thoughts on that.
Okay, saying
Tell me if
Linda,
this
your character, not
tracks
addressing
where
Anne.
the two of you were thinking with this film. So, I love that it's set in the church, and that there's explicit sort of like critique of it, right? Like you've got the crucifix there hanging over the whole goings on. You have the "God with us" banner, and the sort of last shot. You have the end where they're singing. The choir's literally sort of hovering over them the whole time. But there's an estrangement as well. And I wonder, just in terms of like society as a whole, we're going through all these sort of cascading traumas. I mean, just today I saw another school shooting, and so it's just recurring. And one estrangement that I saw in the film is between, and exactly what you're describing, this longing for a religious past that used to be the resources that would help us navigate these. And we're disconnected from it, but still going, but we need them somehow, even if I don't believe in the same way. The other estrangement that I saw was between the church institution and basically humans. The awkwardness of the church staff, the inability or incapacity. It's like the only thing that we're any good at. And I say
that was a really interesting thing, is like the overwhelming, with church comes along this like idea of like, God and kind of like this, all seeing, all powerful presence. Yet what he says here is, the idea of like, especially in the first 15 minutes, like, people who are fallible, people who are, deeply, deeply human. That it is a really interesting contrast, especially for me, because like, well, I don't hate church or anything. It's definitely something that, I was raised Catholic, and I'm not like Fran. I'm pretty like not religious now. Like I wouldn't even really consider myself very spiritual. But it's anytime I think of church or God, there is a very it occupies this like very ethereal, is that how you pronounce that, place in my mind. This very like, I guess spirituality to me is so inhuman, which is funny because I feel like for a ton of other people it's like the most human. But I feel like a lot of other people's ideas of God, of religion, of whatever, is so omnipresent, and so, like, just, it kind of hangs over you, or it's just so powerful that it's hard to it can be sometimes difficult to see the religious institution, especially like, the Christian institution, since it's so powerful here in America, as filled with just like people, just like regular old people, setting up tables, the fold out tables with, chairs and tissue boxes and, washing dishes, the dishes for the church or whatever. It's just, it really separates you from that invisible barrier. Interesting. Yeah.
A church, and the church is setting up tables, right? We've lost the ability to hold people's vulnerabilities and weakness. And I saw both of those estrangements sort of like playing off each other, and then kind of coming back. So I love that when we let it in. So it's not just, here are these, secular people into a sacred place, but it's both the people that are there leading and cultivating the space also are estranged from that sacred space. Does that track with what you were doing in the film?
I mean, I love that. I mean, I yes, in theory it does. I mean, I'm not sure I could articulate it much better. I do love that. I mean, I don't
I don't really think about it that much, but yeah, you can say that. That's funny. Just give me more credit.
I love my supporting characters, and Frida Wool, who I think plays the role of...
She was so good. I think she was so good.
And Anthony, and gosh, it's funny. I'm not sure if I saw them necessarily as estranged from their own work. I really wanted people helping people. I wanted that notion, and I also believed if we just introduced the parents, I thought strangely we would not find the same empathy towards them if it was just a movie with 4 parents. That we needed to meet them through people closer to ourselves, meaning people that have not experienced unimaginable tragedy. Most of us haven't experienced something that cataclysmic,
yeah.
as you said so well. and I thought
He didn't say that in the other interview, but yeah, that's cool.
Through those supporting characters, where we find ourselves in a place to be almost blindsided by the tragedy of these that these other people have experienced. I mean, look, I love everything you're saying. I sometimes feel like I'm the worst person to talk about this movie. But
Sorry,
it's
I was surprised with that.
it is intertwined because I think I have a hard time understanding how life is anything but a spiritual experience, and what is sacrificed in an increasingly more secular society, and what a waste if we're just going to forget or dismiss or discard the themes and values and stories from the Bible. I don't see myself as a religious person, but we can't lose track of these things.
That is interesting. I guess spirituality can lead to a feeling of like interconnectedness. Any sort of religion or spirituality, I feel like, leads to that. The idea that we're all born from the same creator, that we're all born on the earth, that we're all essentially of the same cloth in a spiritual sense. And so for the ideas, it does lend itself really well to the idea of like empathy or restorative justice and rehabilitation. So he's saying that, and I'm understanding it. Me myself as also a not very spiritual person at all, probably less so than him, or I think that empathy, it takes a little bit less of an individualistic or religion too. And for those who are truly spiritual, because there are so many Christians, I feel like, who are hyper focused on this like individualism, and it leads to very toxic behaviors and traits. Specifically in a lot of masculinity type stuff. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I understand what he's saying. And it's honestly, through this like conversation, it's making me very curious about the spiritual. It's something I don't feel very much. When I was a kid, like I said, I was raised Catholic, and I grew up believing in God, and through a series of just worldview stuff and events happening in my life, my relationship with spirituality definitely grew more distant, and I don't know, but now I'm considering the idea that a more social society, which is something I want. I want a more interconnected social society. Can also be a little bit more of a spiritual society, since through talking about it in this way, spirituality, a very general sense of spirituality, can lead to an interconnected feeling. Although once you bring, multiple religions and stuff into that, then all of a sudden it gets complicated again. So that's something I'll have to think about. It's food for thought, definitely. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
And so there's this sort of effort that, yes, there's humans doing work in the parish hall. You have these people doing their own work, but it's contained and it's held together by something spiritual.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting
just
you
rambling.
off.
I'm just rambling.
Somebody asked us today earlier, what do you have any regrets? Was that a question? From what in the experience of shooting and everything? And the one that came to mind for me is I regret not getting the phone number of the woman who did our makeup. The reason is, and I'm thinking of your character, usual, could be considered outsiders, that sweet boy, because he moves through life differently. And where is he safe? Maybe here. And that lovely woman was challenged and was going through very hard times and was very vulnerable, but doing her utter best to get the makeup on her face and get through, and move us to the next place. And I thought, and that's, to me, speaks to the power of this film. Just lay it all down and see each other for who we are. Sorry, you can't get more simplistic than that. Please excuse me. But these are the thoughts that are coming to me of, oh, that's...
Oh, they're running out of time.
It's probably a projection of my own failings as a pastor in those situations. I was a young adults pastor in Colorado when Columbine happened. So feeling that sense of inadequacy, I think probably struck me more in this film than I've seen elsewhere.
Wow.
I really appreciate both of your...
Oh my God, wait. Oh man, why did it have to end there? There's so much more you could have...
It's called Mass. It seemed actually like a mass.
Wow.
And the experience of it. A moment where we gather together in communion and just as you said, know one another on deeper levels. So thank you very much for the artistry and for the conversation.
Thanks, Cutter. Thank you so much. I love that.
Wow. Okay. Good conversation. Good interview. Really appreciate them. I didn't get into the like acting stuff as much as I thought it would, just because I mean they more talked about the film in general versus the how they got into character and all that, which honestly, yeah, maybe I like that. I don't know. Do I want to watch another one? I don't. I think we're good. We heard him tell a couple stories, so okay. Well, yeah. My idea for a deep dive into, a movie like this is to also read other reviews of the film, but I feel like this has already been pretty long, and I feel like we've talked about a lot. This movie definitely encourages a lot of different thoughts, and yeah, so I think I'm gonna cut it here. Please let me know if if you're a viewer or whatever. Let me know if you think I should do more deep dives like this, where I talk about a film and its themes and it get into the interviews or whatever like that. And if so, what films you would be interested in seeing that for. This is definitely something I would be interested in doing a little bit more of. So, with that being said, I think I'm good. I'm good. So thank you for watching. Bye.